Good morning. Okay, so the very end of 25b. So we had a new factor yesterday where we were talking about if the Kohen knows that the blood is impure and he applies it anyways. But then we got talking about how the meat itself became impure. So maybe we'll start from 4 lines from the bottom, second word. So Ravina Amar tu muscle bein b'shogim b'mezid hurtza, whether the meat became impure inadvertently or advertently. So whether a person touched it on purpose or by accident, if the Kohen takes it and throws the blood of meat that is impure, hurtzes rikasu b'shogeg, hurtzes rikasu b'shogeg hurtza, b'mezid lo hurtza. Only if the Kohen takes the blood and throws it up inadvertently is it going to be appeasing. It's gonna go. But if you do it on purpose, the Kohen knows that the meat is invalid, so then it's not going to go. It's not going to be appeasing. Rav Shila Amar's Rikaso Bein Bishogeg Bein B'Mezid Hurtza. So he says he has a leniency and a stringency. The leniency is that even if the Kohen throws up the blood, applies the blood advertently, it's still going to go Hurtza. We don't have a penalty. But Tumaso, it depends how the meat, or maybe how the blood became impure. So Tumaso Bishogeg Hurtza B'Mezid Lo Hurtza. If the meat became impure inadvertently, so then it doesn't matter if the Kohen puts the blood up advertently, it'll go. If the meat became impure advertently, so then it's not going to go. So they each argue on a different point. Ravina says the Kohen has to put it up only if it's inadvertently, it's going to go, but it doesn't matter how the meat became impure. And Rav Shila says it matters how the meat became impure. It does not matter if the Kohen does it advertently or inadvertently. Okay, so now on this last statement that we mentioned, Rav Shila, that which we said that it became hashanitma, became impure, sounds like it doesn't matter how it becomes impure, even if it becomes impure advertently, the Kohen can still be appeasing. So how are you going to reread that brisa? Hakikamar, no. Nitma b'shogeg, it means to say is it became impure inadvertently. V'zarku bein b'shogeg bein b'mezid. But he applied the blood. He applied it, whether he applied it inadvertently or he applied it advertently, it's going to go. Okay, so next page. Tashma dam shenitma b'zarku b'shogeg hurtza b'mezid lo hurtza. So you have the brisa says that blood that became impure and the Kohen threw it up. Once again, a question on Rav Shila, that we have blood that became impure, and it was applied on the altar inadvertently, then it's good. But b'mezid lo hurtza, if he does it advertently, it's not good. That's against Rav Shila. Hakikamer, this is how he reads it. Dam shenitma v'zarku, dam that became impure. V'zarku b'meshogeg b'mezid, and then he threw it up inadvertently or advertently. So it depends. Nitma b'shogeg hurtza, b'mezid lo hurtza. If it became impure inadvertently, then it's going to go. If it became impure advertently, then it's not going to go. So 2 opinions, Ravina and Rav Shila. Does it matter if the meat or the blood how it became impure? And how does the Kohen put it up, advertently or inadvertently? On Rav Shila, we had 2 brises that seem to dispute his opinion. To that, he gets out of both of them. Okay, says the next Mishnah. So now we're talking about the remnants. So, nitmu shiareha, nisrafu shiareha, avdu shiareha. 3 ways. Either the remnants, once again, right? You take the kmitza off, the Kohen takes the kmitza off and place it on the altar. Now, there's remnants that the Kohanim get to eat. What happens if those remnants, before the Kohen puts the flour on the altar, if they get impure, nitmu, tuma, if they get nisrafu, somehow they got burnt up, you put them to your barbecue by accident, I don't know, and shiareha, and avdu, or they just got lost. So now, can you continue with the kmitza service or not? And this reflects a parallel debate with the same 2 opinions by a regular sacrifice. If the meat that you are going to eat gets impure, burnt, or lost, can you continue with applying the blood onto the altar, yes or no? So Nitmu shiareha. So, Kemidas Rabbi Eliezer Kshera. Like the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer from Psachim, he says, the line is, Dam afal pish ein basar, Rashi does, from the Gemara of Psachim. Blood, even though there's no meat. You can apply the blood, even if all the meat is gone. So too the comates you could put up even though there's no remnants. Ukemidas Rabbi Yeshua psula, but like the opinion of Rabbi Yeshua, he says no, ein basar, ein dam, ein basar. They have to go together. You cannot bring the blood up, put it on the altar if there's no meat or in our case flour that remains for the Kohanic consumption. So two opinions parallel the opinions in Psachim. Okay. So Amarav v'hu shenitmu kol shiareha aval miktas shiareha lo. So Rav says that which Rabbi Yeshua prohibits from putting on the altar, that's only when all of the remnants became impure. But if only some of them became impure and you have some left over, even Rabbi Yeshua will agree that you can continue placing the flour on the altar. Now, take the words of Rav at face value. He only mentioned one out of three cases of the Mishnah. The Mishnah mentioned three cases: impurity, burning, and lost. Rav says only if it's impure. So the question is, did Rav mean only if it becomes impure, to the exclusion of the other two cases, or not? So the Gemara says, Kasal kadaitach, you would have thought, nitma'in, it's only if it becomes impure. But avud v'sarif, lo. You would have thought that it's only if it becomes impure, that if it becomes impure, but there's still some remaining, it's going to be good. But if some gets lost or some gets burnt, then it's going to be invalid. So you would have thought, if you look at Rav's words at face value, that this idea that Rabbi Yeshua, who's the stringent one, who does not allow putting the flour on the altar if you don't have the remnants, you would have thought that as long as part of the remnants didn't become impure, you could do it. But if even a part of them got burnt or lost, so then you are not able to do any of the Kmitza service. Just thinking, what would be the difference if it's impure, lost, or burnt? So there's one difference that comes to mind. If it's impure, it's still here, but it's impure. If it's burnt or lost, not here anymore. So somehow you would have thought that the impurity might be a lower level because at the end it's still right here. Mm-hmm. Now, why does being here make a difference? I don't know exactly, but compared to lost or burnt, that would be that's what you would have thought. Now, so on that would have thought. So Ma'ika Savar. 1 second. So then, what does Rav hold? So make up your mind. Ika Savar Shiyura Milsahi. If the remnants are something that are very valid, that they have to be here, so then Afilu Avid V'Sarif. So then even if part of it is still here and the other part got lost or burnt, Nami, you should still be able to do your Kmitza service. And Ika Savar Shirel Lav Milsahi. And if you're going to tell me that the remnants are really irrelevant, so then Vinitma my time. So why would it becoming impure still allow you to continue with it if the remnants are totally irrelevant? So that will say, well, because we have by impurity demarat tzitz. Maybe that's why there's a difference. Because by impurity there's a special dispensation or a special atonement from the headband of the Kohen Gadol. Well, if the reason why it becomes impure, you can keep doing it because of the headband of the Kohen Gadol, ihachi kol shireh hanami, then you should require all the remnants. So meaning, even if all the remnants become impure, you should still be able to do it. Why do you split and say it's only if part remains that you're good to go? Even if all the remnants become impure, you should still be able to continue putting the flour on the altar because the tzitz of the Kohen Gadol is going to atone for it. So Rav, what do you hold? So la'olam kasavar shiura milsahi. He holds like Rabbi Yeshua that the remnants is a real factor and they have to be here for your Kmitza service. So why did he only mention impurity and not the other ones? The nitma, he mentioned impurity if it becomes impure. However, the same rule applies to if part of the remnants are lost or part of the remnants are burnt. The same is going to apply. You can still continue on with your Kmitza service. Well, Rav, why didn't you speak those out? That's a bigger novelty, that all three of them have the same halacha? Answer is v'hayi deka amar nitma reishayu nakat reishayu nakat. He mentioned impurity because if you look at our Mishnah, the first one that's mentioned is impure. So he was just patterning it after the Mishnah. So he just chose the first one of the Mishnah. But of course, he wasn't coming to exclude it being lost or burnt. Kid Tani Rabbi Yeshua kolos vachim shebetorah shenishtar mem kazayis basar kazayis chelev zorik esadam kichatzi basar kichatzi basar kichatzi chelev ein zorik esadam. The Rabbi Yeshua himself says all animals that are sacrificed, that a kazayis of them remains. So, or a kazayis of meat, or a kazayis of the fats. You can go and put the blood onto the altar. If only half a kazayis of meat and half a kazayis of fats remain, then you cannot apply the blood on the altar, except for uba'ola, fully consumed offerings. As the whole thing goes up on the altar, even if half a kazayis remains of meat and half a kazayis remains of fat, then zorik esadam. A few kazayis bazar, kazayis chelev, zorik esadam. Why? Mipnei shakula kollel. Since the whole thing's going to be offered up. So we had this once before that by regular offering you have the forbidden fats get burnt on the altar, and the meat is things that are consumed by a person. So there they don't combine together. You have to have a kazayis of one or the other. By a fully burnt offering, they both combine. You put the fats and the meat all on the altar. So there, even if all you have is a kazayis of half a kazayis of the fats and half a kazayis of the meat, in that case, it's anyways the altar consumes the whole thing. So then that is enough to continue with your service. Uve mincha, but by a mincha offering, afilu kula kayemes lo yizro. But a mincha, even if the whole thing is here, you shouldn't apply the blood. Says Gemara, what? A mincha, apply the blood? Doesn't make sense. There's no blood by a mincha. Mincha, ma'avidito. What's mincha doing in this list? Amar of Papa, what it means is a minchas nesachim, the libations. You now, if only if the flour is around can you do the libations. Now you would have thought, since the libations, the wine comes with the flour, so it's kagufa the zvicha damya. You would have thought it's like the same as the remnants, and as long as you have any wine here, even if you have no remnants left, you could still continue with the kmitza service. Kamash Malan, that no, the nesachim, even though they're secondary to the flour, but they're not as important as the flour, so to speak. So therefore, even if you have no remnants of flour left, but you have a whole bunch of wine left, that's not enough for you to continue your kmitza service. According to Rabbi Yeshua, you have to have some of the remnants remaining. Menohani Mili, what is the source for this? Amar Rabbi Yochanan Mishum Rabbi Shmuel. Umatva B'Shum Rabbi Yeshua ben Chananya. Some say it's the name of Rabbi Shmuel. Some say it's the name of Rabbi Yeshua ben Chananya. That the Amar Kra, the pasuk says in none other than Vayikra, of course. It says that the Kohen puts up the blood, and then the Hiktir HaChelev puts the blood, and then he can bring up the fats as a pleasant aroma to Hashem, so to speak. The Hiktir HaChelev l'Reach Nichoach LaHashem. Says the Gemara, only Chelev. Chelev, the fats, you can put the fats on even if there's no meat. The Ashkechan Chelev Yoseres V'Shtei Klayot. Sorry. Yeah. Chelev V'Afal Pisha Ein Basar. The Torah emphasizes the fats, even though there's no meat, to teach you that as long as you have a kazayis of fat, you can put that on the altar. Meaning, as long as you have a kazayis of chelev, you can continue with the application of the blood. You don't have to have both here, the fats and the meat. If for some reason the meat got lost, as long as you have a kazayis of fats, then you can continue with your service. Eshkechan chelev. Okay, that's chelev. What about yoseres v'shtei klayos? The other sacrificial parts that get put up on the altar is the diaphragm and the two kidneys. How do you know if you just have those that you can put them on the altar? Says the Gemara, mincha afilu kulo kayemes lo yizrok. So it says by the mincha, and I think here it's referring to what we said earlier, by the libation. Even if all the wine is here, you cannot throw. You're not throwing, but you can't put the flour on the altar. So mincha lo yizrok b'hayoser shtei klayot yizrok. So make an inference That was by the libations. But by an animal, if some of the primary parts of the sacrificial parts are intact, are here, like the diaphragm and the two kidneys, Yisrok, you can go and put the blood onto the altar. Yeah. So, okay. Min halan. I guess what we're looking for another source. 1 second. Sorry. That's the inference, meaning that teaches us the law. The law is that if you have the diaphragm or the two kidneys, then you can put it up. Min nolan. How do I know that? Meaning I see that it's true from an inference of what we just said. However, how do I know that it has a source? What's the source for that halacha? Rabbi Yochanan didei amar l'reach nichoach. Kol she'atamala l'reach nichoach. Meaning, it says in the pasuk it should be a pleasantness for Hashem. Whatever is supposed to be put up for a reach nichoach, you can put it up, even if the other parts aren't there. As long as it itself is for pleasantry, it's brought up as a reach nichoach, so then it can be brought up. So why do you have to have two verses? We have chelev and we have reach nichoach. If it just said chelev, you would have differentiated and said only fats, but not the diaphragm and the two kidneys. So therefore, the Torah said reach nichoach to include even the diaphragm and the two kidneys. So now go the other way. Because Rahman and reich nichoach, you would have said reich nichoach, the libations of the mincha offering are also pleasant, so to speak, to Hashem. So therefore, you would have thought that can be brought up even if you have no remnants of the flour remaining. Because Rahman the teacher, no, libations are not good. It has to be from the primary sacrificial parts of the offering. Okay. Now, when it comes to the kmitza, so it's going to be a little bit confusing, but the original sanctity is done in a vessel. The original placing in a vessel, it has to be sanctified through a kli sharis, a service vessel, which sanctifies it. And that's where you put the flour and the oil and you mix it. The question is that after you take out the kmitza, you put it into another vessel. Does that vessel do you need to put it into a holy vessel also or not? So we're going to have two opinions. And for one of the opinions of Shimon, we're going to have three opinions what he holds. Yeah? So just to get you excited before davening. Yeah. So let's say you didn't put it into the second service vessel. Shalo b'kli sharis. So, that's what Rashi points out right away. Of course, the original sanctity in the original vessel, of course, everyone requires a kli sharis. The question is the second vessel. So now remember that the flour offering parallels the animal offering. So kmitza is like the slaughtering. What happens after slaughtering? It gets received into a vessel. So the kmitza is also put into a vessel. After you remove the flour from a vessel, you place it into a vessel. Do you need that vessel? Does it have to be? Does it have to be a sanctified vessel?
No. The new one is.
The new one, yeah, the one you're putting into.
Right.
So, shalo b'kli sharis pasul. First opinion says it has to be. If you don't put in a kli sharis, the whole service is invalid. Rabbi Shimon's a lenient opinion. Machshir. He allows it. That's the first thing. Second thing is hiktir kumtza pamayim kshera. Usually you put one kmitza onto the altar, but let's say you did it in two. You did it one and then two. So whatever measurement you have of kmitza, you have your whole fistful. You have it divided up into two. So you do one after another. Is that good? Says the Gemara, yes. 2 times is good. What about 3 times? That's the Gemara's going to ask. 2 in exclusion of 3, or 2 just means more than 1, right? 2 means 2 and 3, or no, 2 means 2 and not 3. That's going to be, the Gemara later on. Okay, but back to our discussion of putting into. You're taking kmitza off, you scooped it out already, and you're putting it into a vessel. Amar Rabbi Yehuda Brei Rabbi Chia. Says Rabbi Yehuda, the son of Rabbi Chia, my time of Rabbi Shimon. So classic Gemara 101. The novel approach is Rabbi Shimon. Classically, there's a service over here. You put into a vessel and you continue. Rabbi Shimon says, no, you don't have to. So the Gemara jumps. I can't say 100%, but 99% jumps on the novel opinion. My time Rabbi Shimon. What's his reasoning? Tanakama makes sense. It's just like shchita goes into a vessel, so the flour goes into a vessel. You, Rabbi Shimon, are coming with novel approaches. So, what's your source? My time Rabbi Shimon. Amar Kra. It says, Kodesh Kadashim Hi Kichatas Ka'asham, that the flour offering is going to be like Holy of Holies, like a sin offering and a guilt offering. Kechatas uka asham. So what is that comparison? So it's like without the oral Torah, what would you say? Yeah, you get stuck. What would you say? You can make it up, like right. So it's like
Just add on.
today's class was going to be on the oral Torah. That's why I told me I had the whole week I wanted to do it.
Oh,
But then I switched last night. So too much for one class. I don't know. It's like we have 3-4 part series. Just to clarify our belief in the 8th principle of the Rambam of everything was given at Sinai. So I thought that was important. But okay, maybe next time. So yeah. So I need your phone. So yeah, keep the phone if you should. No. So now it says it's like a sin and like an asham. So what does that teach us? We actually had this once before. It says, a long time ago, 11th page of Zvachim. So it says, Amar Kra. So it says, Bala of the biyad, kichatas of the biyamin. You're going to do the service with your right hand, with your hand. Do it like a chatas with your right hand. Okay. Of the biyamin kichatas. If you're going to do it with a vessel, bekli, of the bismol ki'asham. If you're going to put it on the altar with a vessel and not with your hand, so then you could use the vessel could be in your left hand. Rabbi Shimon allows putting with your left hand onto the altar. So it depends. How are you putting the flour on the altar? Using your hand, like a chatas, God, use your right hand. Using a vessel, do with your left hand like an asham. So that is the first opinion. Rabbi Yehuda, Braid, we're going to have 3 opinions. So Rabbi Yehuda, Braid, Rabbi Chia, that's his opinion of what Rabbi Shimon holds. That and according to this, you do not need to, you need to put it in something. But you could use you could use your hand, but then it has to be your right hand. So you see from there that you don't need to put it into a vessel. If you just use your hand, scoop it up, you can put it with your right hand onto the altar. That's fine. If you're going to use a vessel, though, then you can even use your left hand. But you see that you don't have to use a vessel, as we see that you can use your right hand and put it straight onto the altar. So that is the first opinion, for Reb Shimon. That's Rabbi Yehuda Berei de Rabbi Chia. Now the next opinion is Rabbi Yanai. Says Rabbi Yanai. Rabbi Yanai Amar Kevan shekamtzo mikli shares maleyu umaktiru afilu behamaino ve'afilu b'mekida shel cheres. So Rabbi Yanai says that once you took it from a sanctified vessel, then you can bring it up and offer it, even, I think Hamaino is like your sack, like even in your, like you're holding it in your shirt. Your sash, yeah. Or Mekida is an earthenware vessel, meaning a mundane vessel, not a klisharis, not a holy vessel, but rather a mundane vessel. So he says that you don't even need to use your hand. You can just use a sash. And you don't even need to use a sanctified vessel. You have to use you can use a klicheres, a earthenware vessel. Yeah. Okay. So that is Rabbi Yanai. Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak is the third opinion for Rav Shimon. He says, no, he's the closest to the first opinion in our Mishnah. He says, Hakol Modim, Bekometz, Sheton, Kiddush. He says everyone agrees that it has to go into a sanctified vessel. Reb Shimon was just saying when you put it up on the altar, you could just use your hand and put it on. 1 second. Meaning everyone agrees it has to be put into a vessel. The question is, Rabbi Shimon says that when you put it put onto the altar afterwards, so then you don't need a vessel. 1 second, and what would the first opinion in our Mishnah hold? That you would put it on with a vessel? No. Yeah, what is that?
Yeah, they seem to say that they're talking about after it's put into the second t-shirt, then you take it out.
Okay, so he holds you that.
And then can you use your left hand? Can you take it out? I think that's what they.
So the first one you hold that you can't take it out.
How do you? Something just is a situation subsequent to borders of the comets. Following its constellation cliche were performed without the use of cliches. The Talmud maintains that the bodies of the comets require use of the cliches, while Rabbi Shimon maintains that the requirement of cliches is limited to the consecration of the comets.
Okay, so the holds you when you actually put on the altar, you're going to put on with the vessel, and Rabbi Shimon says no, you need to put into a vessel. Then you can take it out and use your hand. Fine.
That's what it seems to.
Yeah, I don't know why I have in my head that you put on. Okay, whatever. Yeah, okay, fine. So that's three opinions. So Rabbi Yehuda Breder Bechia says you can use your hand. Rabbi Yanai says you can use a sash or a mundane vessel. Sounds like Rabbi Yehuda, the first opinion, says if you use a vessel, it has to be sanctified. Just you can do it with your left hand. Rabbi Yanai is a little bit more lenient, and it says no. The middle opinion is the most lenient. You can use a sash or a mundane vessel. And the third opinion is the most strict. That everyone agrees you have to put it into a vessel, a sanctified vessel. The question is, what happens afterwards? Okay. So now let's go. So, to myself, yeah. Meisvei, Hector Chalavim Ve'evarim, when you sacrifice up the fats and the limbs, the eitzim and the wood, Shehelon, onto the altar, Bein Biyad, Bein Bekli, Bein Beyamin, Bein Besmol, whether you use your right hand, whether you use your vessel, your right hand, your left hand, a vessel, it's all ksherim, it's all good. It's all kosher. Even your left hand is fine. Hakomates v'haktoris v'alavona. That's by the fats, the limbs, and the wood. But what about the komates, the flour, the haktoris, the incense, and the incense and lavona, the frankincense, a certain spice. Shehelon bein biyad, bein bekli. Shehelon bein biyad, bein bekli, bein biyamin, bein besmol, ksherin. Whether you use your right hand, your left hand, a vessel, it's going to be ksherin. So you see, not like the first opinion that says if you use your hand, you have to use your right hand. Here we see a left hand suffices. To Yufta, Drabuda, Bray, Derebi Chia. That seems to be a very strong rejection. Amr lach Rabbi Yehuda, Bray, Derebi Chia. Let's done in Kantani. No, I can get out of it. You teach the brisa. It's sort of a let's mean to the side, meaning you don't interpret it as one long sentence going on everything. You split it up as follows. Let's dadin katani. Biyad, when it said biyad, it meant biyamin. Then when it said bekli with a vessel, then it meant bein small. You can use your right hand or your left hand. We thought that the original left hand was going on your hand also. It said hand and vessel left. We thought left was going on the hand. He says no, hand is right. With a vessel is left or right, and therefore he gets out of it. Fine. Tashma comes to shlobik lisharis v'kish shlobik lisharis v'helo b'kir shlobik lisharis puzzle. If you did kmitza not from a klisharis and you sanctified it in not a klisharis and you put it on the altar not from a klisharis puzzle, it's all invalid. Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Shimon makshirin, makshirin, b'matan kli. They allow you to do it as long as you have it in some kind of vessel. So even if it's not a holy vessel, so that's going to be a rejection of the third opinion of Rav Nachman that we say no. Ema mimatan kli v'helach. No, it means from that point onward you don't need a vessel. But you still have to put the flour into a vessel. That's what he'll get out of it, and it won't be a rejection of him. Tashma v'chachamim omrim kometz ton kli sharis. Kometz ton kli sharis. The kmitza requires a kli sharis. Ketzad, what's the case? Kom tom kli sharis umekatcher b'kli sharis. You take it from a holy vessel and you put it into a holy vessel. Umalei maktir b'kli sharis. And when you offer it up onto the altar, it has to be in a kli sharis. That's the first opinion. Rabbi Shimon Amar Kevin should come to a kli sharis. Umalei maktir shlo b'kli sharis. Even though you put it from into a holy vessel, but when you offer it up, you do not need to use a vessel, vidayo. So what do you see? It has to be put into a vessel. So seems like a support for the third opinion. So to that we say, Ema kevan should come to a bikitchu bikli sharis, malayo maktir vidayo. Sorry. Rabbi Shimon says, since you did kmitza from a kli sharis, you could put it. Then that's it. You could put it onto the altar without any kli. That's a problem for the third opinion. It says that you need a vessel. So Ema kevan should come to a bikitchu bikli sharis, malayo maktir vidayo. Since you put it into a kli sharis, then when you place it onto the altar, then you're not going to then you're not going to need a vessel, but you still need to put it into a vessel. After that point, you don't need a vessel to put onto the altar. Okay. Tashma, another brisa. Kamatz biyamino. You do kmita with your right hand, but nasan b'smolo. You put into your left hand. Yaksir liyamino. Put it back into your right hand. Okay. That sounds like the first opinion. You got to use your right hand. Let's say you have in your left hand b'smolo, and you'll turn the page. B'smolo v'chishev aleha. Now you have it in your left hand, and while your left hand, you have our favorite thing, pigel. We've been missing pigel for a while, right? Bein b'chutz l'mkomo, bein b'chutz l'zmano pasel. Ve'ein bo karis. There's, if you have in mind while you're holding it with your left hand that you're going to offer it up, it'll be consumed outside the right place or outside the right time. It's invalid, but no karis. Chishev aleh chutz l'mkomo pasel ve'ein bo karis. Chutz l'zmano pigel v'chayav and alav karis divrei Rabbi Elazar v'Reb Shimon. Rabbi Elazar and Reb Shimon say, even holding it with your left hand, if you have in mind outside the right time or outside the right place, so then outside the right place, we never get karis. Outside the right time, you will get karis. So what do you see for Reb Shimon? That a left hand is, you can do with the left hand. And therefore, if you have pigel while it's in your left hand, it will be pigel. If the left hand is invalid, then it won't be pigel. The Chamamomrim came and Shanasul small salto matanaso. The Chum say, and that's how we hold, once you put into your left hand, you're done. You invalidate the service. My timer, mishum debai kedusha bekli. The kaman shenasal is small. Nasa kedam shenishbrak mitzaver behema ala ritzba va'asvu shapasol. Because the reason why you put in your left hand for the rabbis is it's like you put into a vessel, and then since you need to put it into a vessel, instead of putting it into a vessel, you put it into your left hand. That's akin to blood spilling from the neck of the animal onto the ground and then collecting it. If blood's in a vessel and then spills, you can collect it. But if blood goes straight from the animal to the ground, then you cannot collect it. It has to go straight into a vessel. So since the rabbis hold it has to go into a vessel, if you put it into your left hand, that's akin to going straight to the ground. And even if you put it back into your right hand or scoop up the blood, it's still going to be an invalid service. But what do you see for Rabbi Elazar and Reb Shimon? The implication is Rabbi Elazar and Reb Shimon lo bo matan kli. You see clearly that Rabbi Elazar and Reb Shimon don't need a service vessel. Rather, you put in your left hand, and that's fine. Tiyufta, the Rav Nachman tiyufta, a double tiyufta, a double knockout, a double KO. He cannot get back up, match over, and Rav Nachman's out. So the other two opinions remain. That say that Rabbi Shimon agrees that you don't need to put it into a vessel. The question is, if you do it with your hand, you need your right hand. If you do it with a vessel, you can use a mundane vessel, but you don't need a vessel. Okay.
You do it with your left hand.
Debate if you can do it with your left hand. Debate if you can use a mundane vessel. Yeah. Yeah. Rabbi Yehuda Breder B'chia Misayele. According to Rabbi Yehuda, the first opinion, this is a great support that Misayel, the Rabbi Yehuda Breder B'chia Misayele, the Rabbi Yana, the Rabbi Yanai Lema Tehave Tiyufta. But maybe say this is going to be a rejection of Rabbi Yanai. Because why? Because the first opinion says that when you put it into your left hand, you should put it into your right hand. And the first opinion, Reb Shimon also holds that when you put it into your left hand, it's not going to be, no, 1 second. When you put it into your left hand, it's still going to be pigel. However, it says when you put it into your left hand, you should really put it back into your right hand. Putting it back into your right hand is really a support for the first opinion, not the second opinion. So, so it should be a rejection of Rabbi Yanai. Rabbi Yanai, Ana de Amri, Kitana de Hector, Vilav, Litzadim Katani. Rabbi Yanai says very simple. We had the other brisa that said that that original brisa that we amended, one of the original brisas that we amended, said that you can use your left hand, and that's fine. We amended it to say a left hand going on a vessel. If you put it into a vessel, you can use your left hand. But before the amendation, it sounds like from that brisa that you can use your left hand, no problem. So Rabbi Yana said, you're going to ask me a question from a brisa? I go like the other brisa. So it's not a problem. You can have two brisas having different opinions. That is totally fine. Okay, fine. That is. Oh no, we're not done. Yeah, we are done. Okay, next part of the Mishnah says. Time is it, Jules?
6 minutes out.
Oh, I have a phone too. It's okay. Oh, 7. My watch is fast. That's why.
Oh.
Okay. So 73. Okay. So here we go. So it says the end of the Mishnah said that you can do kmitza twice. If you divide up into 2, you can do it twice over. Okay. So Amar Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. So now 2 and not 3, or 2 and even 3. Obviously, 2 opinions, not 3. Yeah. Amar Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. Pa'amim below pa'ame pa'amim. 2 times and not 3 times. Tell your kid you can make a mistake twice, but lo pa'ame pa'amim, not the 3rd time. So that's Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. That's right. And Rabbi Yochanan Amar, Rabbi Yochanan says, pa'amim ba'afilu pa'ame pa'amim. 2 and even 3. So what is the difference between Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi and Rabbi Yochanan? Mai benayu Amr Bzeira yesh kometz pachos mishnei zeisim v'yesh haktara pachos mikazayis. So ike benayu. The idea that a kometz can be less than 2 olives worth, and there's offering up on the altar less than a kazayis, is the difference between them as follows. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi savar ein kometz pachos mishnei zeisim. Kmitza has to be minimally an olive's worth, and therefore, if it's 2 olives worth, it can only be divided up into 2, not 3. Because once you go less than 3, it's going to come out less than an olive worth, and that can't be. The ein haktara pechusa mikazayis, an offering up on the altar has to be an olive's worth of flour. So therefore, you can only do it twice, because less than twice, it's gonna be now less than an olive's worth on the altar. Rabbi Yochanan savar yesh kometz pachos mishnei zeisim. Nope. You could have a kmitza of less than 2 olives worth, the yesh haktara pechusa mikazayis, and you could offer up flour less than a kazayis, and therefore, if you divide up into 3, that's going to be okay. Itmar says another Amoraic statement: kometz me'emasai matir shirayim ba'achila. At what point does the putting the flour on the altar permit the remnants for eating? Rabbi Chanina Amar mishamashla boas or. As soon as the fire gets hold of the flour that you put on the altar, right away, just gets hold of that flour, you can now eat the remnants. Rabbi Yochanan Amar, Misha Tatzis Bosa or Berubo. It's got to burn. Most of the flour has to be burnt, and then you can eat the remnants. So 2 opinions. It has to a little bit, or it has to or a lot of it, right? Or most of it. So Amar Le Rabbi Yehuda LeRabba Bar Rabbi Yitzchak. So says Rabbi Yehuda for Rabba Bar Rabbi Yitzchak, in the name of Rabba Bar Yitzchak. A sabralach time with Rabbi Yochanan. I will give you the reason for Rabbi Yochanan, who says it has to consume most of it. I guess most probably here means 51% of it. Come on, yeah. So, okay. So what's the reason for Rabbi Yochanan? A sabralach time with Rabbi Yochanan. Amar Kravi hine lecha kitor haaretz kitor kivshon. By where Lot was hanging out, right? That city turned into hine lech kitor haaretz kitor arshan. It went up into smoke, like the smoke of a kivshon of a furnace. Thank you. So ein kivshon malakitor ache tatis or berubo. The furnace only starts putting up smoke once it's mostly the most of it has caught fire. So to the city, once most of it caught fire, then it started producing smoke. I guess here means probably like a lot of smoke. You can have a little smoke even from a little bit of fire. I don't know. So okay. So just like that needed, it's the smoke is when it's burnt mostly. So to here, only when it's burnt mostly. So Rashi fills in. It says by kometz, it says vehiktir. The word hiktir that should be offered up on the altar, should be burnt on the altar. So the other word hiktir was by Sdom, out of all places, right? And there, when it said hiktir, it's referring to since most of the city was burnt, then it produced smoke. So to a hiktir by kometz, most of it has to be burnt.
When it's like dying out, just the embers will get more smoke.
You're the barbecue expert, yeah, I don't know. So
Barbecue.
no, not when the embers are dying out. I think when most of the flour is burnt. What if you have really strong embers that they can? I don't know.
I know if you have a candle that's burning and you put it out right away, it turns into smoke,
In the smoke. Yeah.
which is interesting.
That is interesting. Yeah. Okay. We'll stop here.
Yashakar. Oh my goodness. These are all such
Interesting. Is that what you're going to say? Fascinating, enjoyable, delightful. What words were you saying?
all of the above.
Delicious. Got it. My candle. We can fix that. Are you saying Shabbos and double? My friend. Oh, really? You're catching up. Story time soon. Get excited. Does this count, Steve? That at the end of the week, let's say Sunday, Monday, Tuesday,